Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to this week's edition of the Roundup. It's a pleasure to have you with us today. Today, I'm pleased to welcome once again Parker Summers.
Thank
Thanks
you
for
having
joining
me.
today.
Thank you for having me, Griff.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. How about yourself?
Not too bad. It's been one epic weekend of sports, and
It
we have a
has
lot
been.
to discuss today.
Has been.
Absolutely. I thought we could dive in first with the MLB postseason. So much to take away going forward, as well as this past weekend. Let's start by discussing the San Diego Padres. Coming in as a wild card squad, defeated the 100-win Mets on the road. Now taking down the MLB's league-leading Dodgers, who set the league record with 111 wins. They're tied for fourth most all time. They fell 22 games behind the Dodgers, finished second in the National League West, but now they find themselves in the National League Championship Series. Your takeaways from that game?
Yeah, I'm just as shocked as anybody, watching both of these teams as a Rockies fan. Once the Padres made the deal for Juan Soto, I knew they were going to take that next step, and it's really showing here in the postseason.
Indeed, absolutely. The thing about this Padres team is, yes, they're young and youthful. They're in the postseason for the first time with fans in San Diego in a while, but they also have veteran experience. This team is really built to win now, which I don't think a lot of us realize going into the postseason. They have guys like Juan Soto, who they acquired mid-season. They have Yu Darvish, Josh Hader. They got Manny Machado, Blake Snell. The list goes on. This team is built to win now, and they're legitimate.
It is, and if Fernando Tatis can turn his act around, they got him playing shortstop as well. So they're looking with a real bright future. Of course, they had to trade away their prospects and Robert Hassel III and all those guys. But, hey, when you can get a player like Juan Soto, you got to go and do it.
Absolutely. And you mentioned Fernando Tatis, obviously suspended for 80 games. He won't be back till next year. But the fact that they're winning without him right now is impressive. If they can win at this level without him, they're scary. Look out.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
For sure. And meanwhile, on the flip side, let's discuss the LA Dodgers and yet another collapse. As we know, they've dominated the MLB the past decade, winning 9 of the last 10 National League West championships. The only year they didn't was last season, in 2021, when they still won over 100 games and made the National League Championship Series.
Mm-hmm.
Point being, they've been really successful, but only have one World Series ring to show for their success.
And what I find interesting is that one championship that they won was the shortened season due to COVID.
Exactly. It was a 60-game season, so people can debate whether or not that's a real title or not. The fact is, they have never won, in this modern era, they've never won the World Series in a full season. They've experienced yet another failure. And going into this offseason, they have a bunch of notable free agents. For example, I'm just going to read off a list here. Trey Turner, Clayton Kershaw, Justin Turner, Craig Kimbrell, Joey Gallo, David Price, Tyler Anderson, Andrew Heaney. A big core of their lineup could be headed out. We don't know for sure, but if I'm in the Dodgers front office, if I'm their GM, I'm thinking, what do we do with these players? Is it worth keeping them together after multiple playoff failures? I'm thinking about that hard right now.
Yeah, the nice thing about baseball, though, is there is no salary cap, and the Dodgers, they do have deep pockets, so they can retain all those free agents if they would like to, but if they want to go in a different direction, I could also see that as well.
Certainly. It'd be very interesting to see how the offseason shapes up, because obviously San Diego is in the big spotlight right now, and they're set to host the National League Championship Series starting tomorrow night against the Philadelphia Phillies, yet another underdog squad.
That's right. It's been a crazy in the National League this season.
Yeah, and for Philadelphia, they would have made the playoffs had it not been for the new expanded wildcard rule this year. But they came in as a shock, obviously sweeping St. Louis and Albert Pujols' last ride.
Mm-hmm.
And now taking down the defending champion Atlanta Braves, who again won over 100 games.
That's right. It's been a wild postseason. I'm just as shocked as anyone that the Phillies swept the Cardinals, and they looked like a really good team with Paul Goldschmidt, Arenado, and like you said, Albert Pujols.
Absolutely. Meanwhile, in the American League, we know one team in the ALCS, that being the Houston Astros. They're now in their 6th consecutive one. They're dominant as usual. Meanwhile, they're awaiting the winner of tonight's Game 5 in the ALDS between the Cleveland Guardians and New York Yankees. Who are you taking in that game? It's at Yankee Stadium.
It's tough. Cleveland's been on a real run, but I think Aaron Judge dials it up, and I think the Yankees move on.
I have to agree with you. They are coming off a huge win last night facing elimination after heartbreaking losses at home in Game 2 in extra innings and Saturday night Game 3 when Oscar Gonzalez walked off the game for the home team, the Guardians. That being said, although the Guardians are hot, like you mentioned, the Yankees are back at home. Aaron Judge is back and hitting home runs again in the lineup after an 0-for-8 stretch. I think the Yankees get it done tonight and set up a date with the Houston Astros.
I see that as well. I agree with you.
It'll certainly be an interesting postseason going forward. There's a lot of unexpected moments have happened. That's what makes it really fun, though. As they say, legends are born in October.
That's right.
We're going to take another quick commercial break, but don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Over the years, we kind of realized that you can get ribs anywhere, you can get a steak anywhere, but you can't always get a Mountain View hot link like ours. So we really decided to focus on that niche and realized we had something really special. So that's when we started focusing more on the hot links, but it's still the same family recipe they were making all those years ago. For us, many of our people that work here have been with us for years and decades. So whereas machines kind of break down over time, the people just get better. And it shows in the products we produce. When you buy a Mountain View product, not only is it gonna taste dynamite, but you're also feeding Oklahomans. You're helping employ Oklahomans, and you're helping to fund the state's economy. So what's better than that?
We use the very best of the best ingredients. Demerara sugar is the best that is. Very high quality fruits, berries. The milk we use is the best milk there is. That's why it makes our product stand by itself. I like to make yogurt because I like to eat yogurt. We've been doing this for ourselves for many years because it's a tradition in our family. And we want to have a product which would be very similar to French yogurt, but with our touch of uniqueness, linking our name, our product, with the reputation of the Made in Oklahoma Coalition was probably the best thing we have done as far as promoting our product.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Roundup. Next, let's switch gears and go into the NHL season. The season just began last week.
It did.
As I see you're wearing an Avalanche jersey, you're representing your hometown squad.
I am. Growing up in Colorado, big hockey fan. It's my favorite sport, so I'm excited to talk about it with you today.
Absolutely. My biggest question of the day for you, can the Avalanche repeat?
Well, I'll tell you what, I sure hope so, but it's going to be tough. Losing someone like Nazem Kadri is never easy to replace. And then, more importantly, losing our goalie in Darcy Kemper, it's going to be a question mark if Alexander Georgiev, if he can pick up what he did 2 seasons ago and be that solid goaltender for us.
Indeed. Who would you say the biggest threats are to Colorado? Let's start with the Western Conference.
The West, in my opinion, is a little bit weaker. I think the 2 teams that are threatening Colorado are in the Pacific Division, in the Calgary Flames and the Edmonton Oilers.
Indeed, Edmonton got swept by Colorado in last year's Western Conference Finals, of course. But they also defeated Calgary, who was red hot to begin the postseason.
Yeah, that's right. I think both teams are electric. I think that the Flames, although they lost Johnny Gaudreau and Matthew Tkachuk, they made an excellent trade to get Jonathan Huberdeau and then, of course, Uyghur on defense. I think they actually upgraded because they also signed Nazem Kadri, and I think the Flames are a very, very dangerous team this season. I think they could easily win the President's Trophy for the #1 team in National Hockey League.
Interesting. All right. Another team in the West I think is intriguing is the Vegas Golden Knights. Coming off their first postseason miss in their young franchise history, they've started the season undefeated, including a thrilling opening night win against the LA Kings in the final seconds. Let's say you about Vegas. Are you sold on them? Are they back in playoff contention?
I'm not sold on them. It's the goaltending question for me. Can Robin Lehner be that solid netminder for them? Then they gave away Max Pacioretty for nothing pretty much to the Carolina Hurricanes. And then, Jack Eichel, can he return to form like he was with the Buffalo Sabres? I'm not sold on Vegas. I wouldn't be shocked if they made the playoffs. I don't think they're going to win the Pacific. I think they'll be fighting for a wild card spot.
All right. And back to the subject of the Avalanche and their title defense. Let's migrate to the Eastern Conference. which team strikes you as the biggest threat in the East?
It's got to be the Lightning, man. I mean, they've made 3 Stanley Cup final appearances, and, they only really lost Andrei Palat, and they re-signed their players and Mikhail Sergachev and Anthony Cirelli, not to mention they got the best goaltender in the league, in my opinion, in Andrei Vasilevsky. They got Steven Stamkos, Braden Point, Nikita Kucherov, Victor Hedman. I think that team's poised to still go to the Stanley Cup final.
Indeed, I would have to agree. And the thing is, Tampa Bay was not seeded very high in last year's postseason. Correct me if I'm wrong, I think they were 6th or 5th in the Eastern Conference.
They weren't super high, but the main reason for that is, when you go to so many finals, you really coast towards the end of the regular season so you don't get hurt. And you have a good team so you can dominate in the playoffs and you don't get hurt going into the playoffs. So I think that's their strategy going into the playoffs.
Very interesting indeed. They faced elimination early on in the playoffs, but as you mentioned, they're the 3-time defending Eastern Conference champion. They've won 2 of them in 2020 and 21. They're always in the mix. Regardless of what seed they are, they're always a legitimate threat. I agree. I wouldn't be surprised if Colorado and Tampa Bay meet again and to form an epic clash.
I would love that as an Avs fan. I think it would be interesting that if the Lightning do return to their 4th Stanley Cup final, going to Pat Maroon, that would be his 5th Stanley Cup finals. He was with the Lightning for their 4, and then he was with the Blues the year before that.
Very interesting indeed. In the East, another couple teams to mention are the Florida Panthers, Toronto Maple Leafs. Does anybody else join that list?
Yeah, I'm going to go Carolina. They may not have the star power that everyone has, but they have a lot of really good players, and they've made some really great acquisitions this offseason. I think Carolina might be the biggest threat to Tampa Bay in that Eastern Conference.
Very true indeed. That's. Would you say the Eastern Conference is more wide open with more contenders? I know you mentioned earlier the West seems to be weaker.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of contenders in that Eastern Conference. Like I said, the Lightning, Carolina, you got the Leafs, you got the Panthers. The Bruins could make a push. There's a lot of good teams in that Eastern Conference, and I think we're going to quickly see the seeding of the Eastern Conference before the Western Conference.
Indeed, very true. Real quick, at this point, I know it's very, very early. What's your preseason prediction for the Stanley Cup final? Who do you have?
I got to go with the Avs versus the Lightning, the 2 dominant teams. I can't bet against either of the teams.
All right, we'll have to keep in touch with the season and see what happens. All right, we'll take another quick commercial break, but don't go anywhere.
My name's Kayla. I've been here since the beginning, so 4 years. Scratch is more focused on farm and mostly made in Oklahoma products, keeping it local. Sustainability is our biggest thing. That's one of the reasons why this place opened.
I've been the chef here at Scratch for 2.5 years. Started here as a line cook. Our food and drinks are a bit separate entities almost inside the restaurant. So the food is now up to 85% of the products we bring in are raised or grown locally. It's all based off of things that I grew up eating in southern Oklahoma, the things my grandparents ate.
Fresh food, clean food, organic food, sustainability, that's all of our thing. From front of house to back of house, we're able to maintain both with freshness. But made in Oklahoma means we get it straight from the farms that are 20, 30 minutes, another little county away. We get it straight from them.
We would design something, it was set on the counter, and people was either, if enough of them said, this isn't it never made to the line. Dad was excited that they're all original. They were all designed on Mom's kitchen table, and it gets in your blood after a while.
We're very happy that Pamela and Michael have taken over the business and kept the family going.
We took the business over in 2017. When we found that it was available, we wanted to keep the legacy of family alive, but it was also incredible products that deserved to be a part of Made in Oklahoma's story. We were a part of Made in Oklahoma years ago, and so it kind of grew as Made in Oklahoma grew.
Oklahoma is ingrained into everything that we did. We've been here most of our life. That's what we entailed our whole business on, was the Oklahoma homegrown feeling.
Howdy everyone, welcome back to the Roundup. Let's dive into the NFL season.
Let's
of
do it.
course, we're Already a third of the way through the season. It's hard to believe that.
It's moving fast.
Very true indeed. Obviously, let's discuss the biggest and most important game from Sunday, that being the Buffalo Bills and Kansas City Chiefs. Your takeaways?
Yeah, I think it was a very important game, like you mentioned. I think that could determine who the number 1 seed is in the AFC conference. And, that was a really close game until Mahomes threw that interception late in the fourth quarter to seal off the Buffalo win.
Very true. Buffalo got their revenge indeed, following last season's heartbreaking overtime loss, in which they never got a chance to possess the ball once in OT. But as you mentioned, Pat Mahomes' interception in the end sealed the deal for Buffalo. It's not necessarily going to make up for their postseason defeat, considering that we have a long way to go this season, and these two teams could very easily, and I'm going to say very likely and will, meet in the AFC Championship.
And it's never easy to beat the same team twice in a season.
That's very true. The Buffalo Bills beat Kansas City on the road in Week 5 last season, which a lot of people tend to forget about. 38-20, they crushed them. Given that was earlier in the season, Kansas City had its struggles.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact is, they reunited and came together in the postseason again. And it's safe to say the Chiefs are the Bills' kryptonite. The Bills have been eliminated by the same team the past 2 postseasons, that being KC, obviously. So this rubber match, if it happens this upcoming postseason, could really be pivotal for the Buffalo Bills if they want to go to the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm. And I think, they got to go through Kansas City. I think, like you said, they're going to meet again in the playoffs, and you got to get over them. And honestly, to be the best, you got to beat the best. So,
very true indeed. And I got to say, Josh Allen was very, very impressive yesterday, especially on the game-winning drive when he kept the ball and ran near the sideline. And to quote Jim Nantz, Josh Allen with the keep and the leap. He pulled a hurdle, which he did in his rookie season just 4 years ago, jumped over the Minnesota Vikings lineman.
mm-hmm.
Vintage Josh Allen, I guess you can say. Very, very impressive. Just his poise, he showed his maturity in there. He looks like a veteran quarterback, and he's still very young. And that team looks dangerous going forward. I mean, he showed yesterday what he's made of and what he has, and that's his ability to win games in the final minutes.
That's right, Josh Allen. I mean, he might be the front runner for MVP right now. I mean, if I had to vote for an MVP or this early in the season, it'd be either Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson at this point in the season.
Lamar Jackson, interesting. The Ravens have had 3 losses this season, all of which had big leads that they blew.
Mm-hmm.
Those being against Miami and just recently against a whole bunch of other teams.
Yeah, but like I said, the MVP, it's most valuable player. It does help if you do win, and I think the Ravens do have to start winning for Lamar Jackson to win the MVP. But, we're only early into the season, so.
Yeah, and speaking of MVPs, one former MVP to still keep an eye out for is Tom Brady. The Buccaneers are now 3-3, surprisingly, as they fell to Pittsburgh yesterday, 20-18. I don't know if you saw the clip, but Brady was absolutely livid with his teammates on the sideline, especially his O-line.
Yeah, and I'm shocked they lost that game to Kenny Pickett, who's been struggling thus far into his NFL career. So it was a big shocker to me when the Steelers did pull that upset.
Yeah, very true. Pittsburgh's not doing too well this year. They're still in the mix, obviously, with Mike Tomlin as their coach. They'll still be relevant in the hunt for the playoff, or the wild card, I should say. They're 2-4 now, coming off a huge loss to the Buffalo Bills the week before, obviously, 38-3. It's very interesting, though. I wonder, what do you think Tampa Bay is going to end up doing this season? Are they a wild card team? Are they still a top threat in the NFC? Or are they missing the playoffs entirely?
I think they're making the playoffs. Let's not kid ourselves. But going for that, I think they'll win the division. I think they're just the clear best team in the NFC South. But, they got to start picking it up. I still think they got the pieces. And, that receiving core is still very dangerous, led by Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, of course. But, they got to pick it up. Otherwise, they might have a short stint in the playoffs.
Definitely that receiving core, as well as running back Leonard Fournette, and the defense is going to have to carry that team. And I said this earlier on the show a couple weeks back, but I think this is Tom Brady's final season. He's showing us that clearly he's human.
Mm-hmm.
We all questioned for once if he was or if he wasn't, but he very much is human, and this will be the last we see of the all-time great, arguably the GOAT.
That's right. Yeah, I do think it's probably his final season. You can see the off-field and just him regressing, getting older in age. So I do agree with you that this will be his final season.
We're going to take one last commercial break, but stay tuned. We'll be right back.
My name is James Ramidi. Fired Up Stilly is the name of the business, and I'm one of the owners. We all three met, the three owners, working as employees at a similar place like this. What I hope for is for everybody to feel welcome, like family. Not only do I want students to feel welcome to come here and study and use our free Wi-Fi, but also I want adults and families to be able to come in. We've built a connection with a lot of people, and Stillwater's a big community, so we just want to invite everybody to be able to eventually make their way through our doors. Well, definitely the teas, I would say. Most people fall in love with them. They just got a great amount of energy, gets you going through your day, and it just kickstarts you to get everything you need to done. For myself, it would just have to be, being the owner, owning something that, is able to impact other people's lives, and, the way we can affect our community is something that I really have always wanted to do. We love our clients and our customers that come through every day, and we enjoy getting to know them.
Hi, I'm Shauna here at Where the Buffalo Roam in beautiful downtown Pawnee, Oklahoma. We have a lot of beautiful and unique items for sale in the store, but our number one items are Navajo jewelry, Pendleton blankets, and Consuela. It's a great place to shop, a beautiful downtown, so come see us in Pawnee, Oklahoma.
All right, everyone, welcome back to the Roundup. Let's continue our discussion about football, this time on the college level. Let's start by getting it out of the way, of course. Oklahoma State suffered its first loss this weekend on the road at TCU. What is your takeaway from this game, and what was our biggest mistake?
I think our biggest mistake was going conservative on the offensive play calling. I think it led TCU right back in to the game. We had an opportunity to go up 3 touchdowns late in the fourth, played a little conservative, and only went up by 2 kicking that field goal. But I will say, Tanner Brown, Special Teams Player of the Week, I think he's a really solid kicker, and we obviously saw that making that 52-yard field goal.
Very true indeed. OSU kicked 4 field goals. They should have scored more touchdowns. But that being said, Tanner Brown is very much a huge part to their offense, and their special teams, which has played a crucial role for them this season.
Yeah, I agree. We do need to be more efficient in the red zone. I think, 4 red zone trips, or not 4, but 4 red zone trips that ended with field goals, and you got to capitalize on those opportunities.
Yes, and as we all know, we were up pretty big, especially early on. We were up by 17 points. We scored a touchdown with 10:49 remaining in the second quarter. From that point on, we didn't score another TD until late in the game. So we definitely need to capitalize on red zone opportunities, especially if we don't get many of them against what's becoming a really solid squad like TCU.
Yeah.
We got to capitalize on those drives and really score as many points as we can.
Absolutely. And we also got to start eliminating those self-inflicting wounds with the penalties. Of course, a lot of being undisciplined with, of course, false starts, jumping the snap. So you got to be more disciplined on the offense.
Indeed. And I got to say, another crucial reason as to why we lost was our inability to tackle. I don't know if you noticed this while watching the game. We missed so many tackles that should have been made. Our defense was just not on their A game that day, and that really cost us. This is what allowed TCU to score 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter to tie the game and ultimately take it in overtime.
I think specifically in that second half, that's where the defense did struggle with tackling. I thought they were very solid in the first half, but then once it moved past halftime, I thought they struggled with the tackling.
Indeed, and one player we can't forget to mention, of course, is Spencer Sanders. This loss is not by any means his fault. He put up 245 passing yards and a touchdown and an interception. Not a bad day for him. It's again not at all his fault that they lost. The team just lacked chemistry overall and was not on their A game as an entirety.
And that happens, You're not of course you want the team to be perfect, but there's going to be some days where you're just you're not on it, and losses like that happen. Is how you rebound after these losses that will determine how your season's going to go.
Yes, and on the flip side, how about TCU quarterback Max Duggan? He's been lights out this season. Obviously, he's adding to his highlight reel this year, beating Oklahoma State. He's had some other impressive outings this year, such as just a couple weeks back when they completely demolished OU, who's obviously out of the top 25 for a while now. But still, the fact is they beat OU, and they had a really impressive showing that day.
And it's really impressive when you consider the fact that he started the season off as the backup quarterback for TCU.
Very true indeed. He's in the mix right now, at least, for potentially a Heisman candidate. Other candidates include a couple of players from the Tennessee Volunteers. Let's delve into that game. Easily the game of the year up to this point between Alabama and Tennessee. Let's talk about that game for a bit.
Let's do it.
I don't even know where to start with this one. Let's start with their wide receiver, Jalen Hyatt, recorded 6 receptions for 5 touchdowns and 207 yards. That's unheard of. I'm not sure I've ever seen a stat line like that in my life watching college football.
Yeah, as you mentioned to me before we started the show, it's a lot like that Randy Moss stat line. And yeah, that was very impressive. And let's not forget about Volunteers quarterback Kendon Hooker. He had nearly 400 yards, 5 touchdowns, and a pick. That was a very, very solid performance by Hooker.
Indeed, 2 Heisman candidates as well, Hooker and Hyatt from Tennessee. On the flip side, Alabama, though they came up short, and they're not nearly as dominant this season as they have been throughout the last decade and beyond that, with considering their rich tradition of all those championships they've won. But we can't leave out Bryce Young, the reigning Heisman winner, who was out 2 weeks ago against Texas A&M. Obviously, Bama still prevailed. But the fact is, Young is still playing lights out, and he is, in my opinion at least, some will agree with me, the best player in college football today. He's got experience, and he's obviously he's a veteran too, considering that he's a Heisman winner already.
Yeah, I also got to go on that Alabama defense. I think one of the better defensive players in the country, and Will Anderson. I thought he had a solid, performance, and I think that him and Bryce Young, maybe the 2 best players on that Alabama team. And when you're a team like Alabama who's been that dominant for that long, you're going to get teams' best performances every week.
Very true indeed. A hot take real quick before we wrap the show up. At this point in the season, who should win the Heisman?
After that Bama game, I got to go with Kendon Hooker.
Indeed. All right. I think, Jalen Hyatt can't be slept on right now, but we'll have to see. I think it will be C.J. Stroud from Ohio State. We'll have that discussion another time, but it's safe to say it's a very interesting season, and it's coming to fruition. It's all coming together. It's forming a really interesting shape right now.
It is.
All right. Well, thank you for joining the show
today.
Thanks
for having me.
Of course, anytime. That will wrap it up for today's episode. Stay tuned. Thanks for joining. I'm Griff McClellan, and of course, go Pokes.
Hi, I'm Amanda Akins. I'm the owner of Hurricane Dixie Leather. I started this company back in about 2015, and I think that one of the most unique things about our store is that we're not just your everyday mom and pop leather shop. We use a lot of color and unique techniques that set us apart from others. We are a full Wrangler retailer. We have lots of Wrangler jeans and shirts. We've also got some other fun boutique clothes, and everything, all the leather goods in the store are made here in the shop. We also accept custom orders.
Our state is one of the most beautiful and unique states in the USA. With diverse geographies, the historic Route 66, unforgettable restaurants, and some of the greatest people on the planet. With so much to see and so much to do, living in Oklahoma means one of the best vacation spots is right in our own backyard. Doesn't this story need to be told? As filmmakers and photographers based right here in Oklahoma, we thought so. And hey, who doesn't like a good road trip?